At least 6 states are now taking steps to curb some of the emergency powers granted to their governors when the pandemic began. Oklahoma is one of them. Jason Doyle reports on that and on a bold move by some to change how initiative petitions get issued before voters.
Governor Stitt has been given unprecedented power through the first 2 years of his administration. The first year, he was given authority over 5 major state agencies. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck a year ago, Stitt exercised even more power under the catastrophic public health emergency declaration. Some in the legislature are ready to put checks back into the state government's checks and balance system.
I'd like to point out that I'm not running this bill because the governor has done a terrible job at managing the COVID crisis.
Representative Jay Stiegel has 3 bills which limit government action awaiting their turn on the House floor for debate. 2 of them are meant to place a check on the governor's power during a time of crisis.
Now that we've got a year's worth of experience under our belt in dealing with this COVID situation, let's find out what it is that we actually need so that the legislature can put that into language and get that to the governor so that should the need arise again, that the executive, no matter who that is, can act properly and constitutionally.
The other measure is House Bill 2335. It keeps the state and local governments from requiring a vaccination.
What the bill does is it puts a restriction on government entities from imposing a vaccine mandate.
He adds that legislation won't change private employer requirements or current school law on vaccinations. Stiegel isn't the only one looking to keep a legislative check on the executive branch. Senator Nathan Dahm has proposed Senate Bill 541.
Senate Bill 541 is an attempt to clarify during an emergency the powers and duties of the governor, specifically in regards to closing businesses.
Dahm believes the state constitution protects business owners from having to close down even in an emergency. This legislation is meant to make sure there is a clear purpose for closing a business during another public health emergency.
So we are making sure that during a pandemic declared by the governor, that the governor has to provide scientific evidence that that specific business is contributing to the spreading of a disease in order to be able to close down that specific business.
Senate Bill 541 won committee approval and is awaiting a chance on the Senate floor. Another change to how government is run in Oklahoma is focused on the initiative petition system. Several bills and resolutions are being considered this session to change requirements to get an issue on the ballot for voters to decide. Representative Eric Roberts is proposing House Bill 1767 to require initiative petitions to explain their financial impact on the state.
Basically, all we're changing is the requirements for the initiative petition and extension from if it has a fiscal impact, that it gets a 300-word limit instead of the 200-word limit, so they can still explain the initiative petition in that 200 words. And the only thing would be the added 100 words if it has a fiscal impact to the state.
Some question the intent of House Bill 1767.
I'm curious about what motivated you to run this legislation. I know we all know that in the last couple of years there have been quite a few state questions that have passed that may not always align with this body, but what the people want. And so I'm wondering, is that the motivation? If not, what might be the motivation?
Make sure that the voters are fully informed about the potential costs to the state for not for just 1 year, but for ongoing years.
House Bill 1767 won approval and heads to the Senate. Another measure approved this week actually gives more authority to a member of the state executive branch. Representative Jared Kendricks' House Bill 1090 gives the state auditor inspector more leeway to do performance audits.
This bill makes a single change to Title 74 of the Oklahoma statutes, allowing the state auditor and inspector to do performance audits on state agencies as questions arise without being requested to do so by the governor, by a joint committee of the legislature.
The passage of that bill won the praise of State Auditor and Inspector Cindy Byrd, who said in a statement, House Bill 1090 is landmark legislation that will create a new level of oversight and transparency of how state agencies spend taxpayer money. I admire the Oklahoma House members who voted unanimously to pass this bill for having the foresight and courage to demand accountability of state spending. Performance audits are the best method for finding waste and abuse. The next legislative deadline looms next week. Stiegel hopes his slate of bills get to the next level to help keep powers in check and government running for the people.
Our needs change over time, The important part here is that we make sure that we're adjusting the framework that we operate within. So not to tie the governor's hands too much or exclude the legislature at all in that process.
Jason Doyle, the Oklahoma News Report.